What is up, weather enthusiasts? I'm your host, Pat's Path Predictor. Let's get right into the weather. All right, so here's the situation we have for you, ladies and gentlemen. We have a lot to discuss with you today in regards to Tropical Storm Erin. Erin has strengthened to a 60-mile-per-hour tropical storm, and it is possibly even further to the south of its current location right now. We're going to be talking about that, as well as the track, as well as the potential threat to land, as the odds of that have only increased as time has continued to go on. So with that being said, let's go ahead and dive right into it. Starting off right here, we have the latest advisory from the National Hurricane Center for you guys right here. It lists the public advisory. We're going to go over this and then a couple other things as well. Erin strengthening while moving westward, forecast to become a hurricane tomorrow. Its current location is 16.4 degrees north, 49.7 west. Maximum sustained winds are at 60 miles per hour. It is currently moving west, which is actually a bit, according to the NHC, a tick north of west at 17 miles per hour, and its minimum central pressure is 999 millibars. We will get back to this westward track in a little bit because there is some new information we need to share with you, but tropical storm force winds extend outward 60 miles from the center, so we're going to have to pay very close attention to see how this pans out. And going over the discussion, once again, we're going to go over some of this for you right here. Satellite imagery shows that Erin has become better organized this morning with the formation of a ragged central dense overcast over some of the outer banding in the northwestern semicircle. Satellite intensity estimates have increased a little based on the past 6 hours and are now at the 40 to 55 knot range. They are increasing their intensity to 50 knots as a result of this. Erin is in an environment of light to moderate easterly vertical shear and moving over increasing sea surface temperatures during the next 48 hours. This should allow for a faster rate of intensification during this time, and Erin is now forecast to be a hurricane tomorrow. The environment becomes less conducive after 48 hours, with the global models forecasting northwesterly shear over the cyclone as a large upper-level anticyclone develops to the west. Despite this forecast shear, the global and regional hurricane models forecast intensification to continue, although at a slower rate. Based on these forecasts, the new intensity shows steady intensification through 48 hours, followed by a slower rate afterward. So we're going to have to pay attention to that as well. It's currently expected to get up to a high-end Category 3 according to the National Hurricane Center, although a lot of hurricane models do want this to get up to Category 4 intensity, so we're going to have to pay attention to that as well. Hurricane hunters will also be going out in this shortly. Here is the schedule for you guys today. They're expecting to bring out a few Hurricane Hunter aircraft. They're actually bringing out, I think 3 or 4 of them potentially out today. Some of it for Invest 98L and some of it for Erin right here that we're going to have to take very seriously. I believe the first plane will be departing at around 3 o'clock Central Time, 4 o'clock Eastern Time from what I have seen. So that is something that we're going to have to pay attention to, kind of getting that data, which in my opinion is very important to gather, and we'll have to see how Erin progresses from there. Also, we do have Invest 98L that's currently over here in the Gulf right now. So let's go ahead and quickly talk about this, and then we'll get into a few things I really need to discuss with you guys. A broad area of low pressure located over the Bay of Campeche is producing disorganized showers and thunderstorms. The low is forecast to move west-northwestward across the southern Gulf during the next day or two, while the environmental conditions are marginally conducive for further development. The system is expected to move inland over northeastern Mexico or southern Texas by late Friday, ending its chances of tropical cyclone formation. 20% chance of formation in the next 48 hours and 7 days for you guys right there. So that's the situation we have with 98L. Now, we need to go ahead and discuss something because we're actually going to go ahead and go to satellite imagery with Erin because there's a few things we need to talk about with you. So, starting off for you guys right here, by the way, seizure warning to those prone to flashing lights. What we have for you right here with Erin with the DAPIA website, it's producing a lot of convection all across the board. It's firing on quite a lot of cylinders right here, as we like to say it. But there are a few tidbits that we need to talk about. The first thing we need to note is there is some northeasterly shear impacting the structure of the system a little bit. It's not necessarily hindering its development or strengthening as much, but more so it is kind of vertically tilting the center of circulation as further aloft, and that's something we're going to want to watch because, matter of fact, we actually have a tweet that I need to show you from Andrew Austin Adler, the AAA man himself, right here, because this is going to be a very critical situation over the next few hours. It's worth noting that a significant vertical tilt exists between the mid-level and low-level vortex in Erin. Given persistent northeasterly shear and southerly displaced convection, it will work to pull the low-level circulation south, resulting in southwest track deviations. That is very important, and that is very critical to look at right here. Matter of fact, we need to go ahead and show you the cone from the National Hurricane Center just to give you some context as to what we're talking about. So this is where we are at 11 a.m. Its current forecast is expected for it to move west-northwest, north of the Lesser Antilles, east of the Bahamas, and then starting to make that turn potentially out to sea. But with the combination of all the models shifting further and further and further to the west, as well as the track staying further south and further west of its current expected track from the NHC and the models, that is kind of making this problematic. And what it's going to ultimately do is, once this LLC gets pulled in here, which according to what I've talked to with my tropical team, as well as some research I have done, that appears to be the most likely scenario, as long as there's a consistent area of convection near the center, and Erin stays pretty consistent, which based on the last few hours, I don't see why it wouldn't at this current point. I apologize for the flashing lights once again, but looking at this satellite imagery right here, the convection is still very persistent, and it looks like it's not slowing down anytime soon, as you still have that CDO building up and blowing up right here. Once that LLC moves further to the southwest and kind of joins with the mid-level circulation, at that point is when, A, we're going to start seeing track deviations, and we're going to start seeing the models initializing from that current point, and B, that's when we're going to start seeing very fast intensification from this, because keep in mind, this is a small system that we're dealing with, and small systems tend to intensify a lot quicker in better conditions. Now, I'm sure probably some of you are going right now, oh, Patrick, what are you talking about? The NHC is saying it's going west, it's moving north of west. Not necessarily right now, given these latest developments, what we have from the shear, and you're probably asking what shear. There is a little bit of shear that's kind of hindering it slightly that's coming from the northeast, but you also have to remember a little less shear can still impact very small systems like this, like 10 to 15 knots of wind shear can still bring tiny variance and make those variants amplify quite a bit in tiny systems like this. So that's something you need to keep in mind, and that's what part of the reason why we're seeing the MLC shift further to the southwest compared to the low-level circulation. And based on my opinion and the opinion of many others, it looks like we're going to kind of not necessarily see a relocation of the center, but rather it gets tugged further to the southwest and kind of causes the track to move even further to the southwest and closer to land, both in the short term and in the long term. I also have to say that Erin is one of the most difficult storms that we've ever had to forecast on Pat's Path Predictor, as well as just in general across the weather community, because despite the models continuously trying to get a handle on it, they're not really doing their best at this current point, and the initialization is always off because the track continues to move further and further and further south from the expected track at that current point. So these continual southern shifts that we're noticing right here, both on the current track as well as in the models, is why this is so difficult to forecast. And even though some are saying, oh, this is going to be a fish storm and all of that, I'm leaning that's less likely. And keep in mind, just because a system doesn't make landfall doesn't mean it's not going to impact land. We might see some impacts in the Lesser Antilles and Puerto Rico. The Bahamas are increasingly more in the line of fire based on recent modeling and based on the current track that we're noticing right here. Also, I don't think the models were until recently taking into account a stronger than expected ridge that we were seeing develop over in parts of the Atlantic. So that is also something we need to consider at this current point in time. But with that being said, we're going to go ahead and show you those track models and the intensity, but please do take that with a grain of salt because Erin continues to defy a lot of expectations, at least in terms of the track, and even a little bit of a shift to the south can mean big implications later down the road. Here are the track models for you guys right here. Basically, what the system's expected to do is it's expected to continue to move generally to the west-northwest after this current point, but given that the LLC needs to merge with the MLC, and that's kind of moving more to the southwest at this current point, that's going to probably take a little bit longer, and I could honestly expect to see a shift in these models further to the south and further to the west, potentially closer to the Lesser Antilles and Puerto Rico, given what we're seeing with current conditions at this current point in time. The hurricane runs are kind of interesting with this because the rest of the models here do want this to turn as it gets north of Hispaniola and mainly stay west of Bermuda and go out to sea. But the hurricane runs are dead set on the system still going northwest and closer to the Bahamas right here. And part of it is because they're catching on to a stronger than expected ridge that's in the mid-Atlantic. And another thing we haven't considered yet is the ridge that's currently over Florida that we were talking about a couple of nights ago is expected to move a bit further to the west than anticipated. So that's something that we're going to want to watch as well. Looking at the intensity models for you guys right here, intensity continues to be very, very interesting. The hurricane models want this to get up to Category 4 intensity. In fact, quite a few of the models actually do peak at that strength right there. Majority of them keep it around Category 3 intensity at this time, so we're going to have to watch this as the system moves closer and closer towards land and into better and better conditions. Let's go ahead now and just look at some of the modeling we have for the hurricane runs, and we'll go ahead and extrapolate from there. The 12Z runs are starting to trickle in right now. But just because they're not in just yet, we'll use the 6C just to give you a general idea of just the intensity of this system, as well as where this may end up going. But please do keep in mind that the real-time conditions at this point do not accurately reflect where the initialization on some of these models are. So with that being said, let's go ahead and show you. We'll start with the H-Wharf, and we'll shift over to the main sea level pressure and 10-meter winds. So you have the system organizing, strengthening in the next 30 hours or so. You're starting to see this getting close to hurricane strength. I would say the H-Wharf is a little bit behind in regards to its initialization right here in terms of its intensity, so that's something to consider right here. And this moves just north of the Leeward Islands right here. The Leeward Islands are pretty much on the southern part of this frame right here, so you're going to want to pay attention to that. There's also some outer bands that are part of this right here that are going to be impacting parts of the Leeward Islands, so you're going to have to pay attention to that as well. Storm surge could be an issue. Heavy rain could be a big issue with that as well, especially as this becomes a major hurricane to the north of those islands right here. Then it continues to move further to the west right here, continues to increase in strength right here. 943 millibars system at about 102 hours out. Looking at that, at the winds, this is a Category 4 hurricane according to the H-Wharf, and then the system starts to move a little bit further to the west. It does undergo an eyewall replacement cycle, I'm pretty sure, and then starts to grow in size and then consolidate from there. So that's the H-Wharf for you right there. Next model we'll go ahead and show you is the HMON. HMON's pretty interesting. The 12Z is trickling out a bit more. We can take a quick gander at that for the short term, but here's what we have for the 6C. 6C has the system strengthening pretty quickly, actually, getting up to hurricane strength in the next 24 hours, probably by tonight at this current rate, and the system continues to intensify, continues to organize, actually continues to move just north of the Lesser Antilles right there, so you're going to want to watch that as well. This is already a major hurricane by the time it gets north of those islands, so if you're in the Lesser Antilles, you're going to want to take this very seriously because any further southward shift will put you guys more and more in the line of fire. And that is something we absolutely do not need at this current point. And based on what I've seen with some of the modeling last night and this morning, the Bahamas are also potentially going to be in the line of fire, and they need to be watching this as well. But the HMON has the system getting down to a 934 millibar system before undergoing an eyewall replacement cycle and consolidating from there. But still, a Category 4 hurricane according to this run right here. Let's go ahead and show you the 12Z. This is short term we have for at least about 3 days from now. So here's what we got for you. Systems continuing to consolidate, then strengthen, and then continues to potentially intensify. It's actually moving even closer to the Lesser Antilles than the previous 6Z run. Actually, so we're still seeing those deviations slowly from more to the south and slowly more to the west as well. The HMON isn't as strong in regards to its intensity closer to the Antilles right here, but you're still going to want to pay attention to that regardless, and that is something we will continue to keep you updated on here on the Pat's Path Predictor channel. Next thing we'll show you is the Halves A run with Erin. This is about 2 days out. We can kind of give you a general gist as to what's going on with that. We'll go ahead and show you the 6Z and then the 12Z. Here's your Halves A model. System organizes, develops, and starts, not really develops, it's already developed. It strengthens and gets pretty close to the Lesser Antilles right here. This is forecasted about 60 hours out right here. Keep that in mind. Its current latitude is about 20.2 degrees north and 62.7 degrees west. What's the 12Z's data? Oh my goodness, this is actually quite a bit further to the south and quite a bit closer to land right here. We're at 19.6-ish degrees north and 63.3 degrees west. Yeah, that is bringing tropical storm force winds almost to the Lesser Antilles. So those southern shifts in the track that we're noticing, and those southern shifts we are noticing with the LLC starting to get attached to the MLC and starting to get dragged into that, that is only putting the Antilles in more and more in the line of fire right there, and that potentially could put the Bahamas in the line of fire before the system is anticipated to start turning more to the north. So that's something we're going to want to watch. We're seeing generally a southward shift in the model still, even after all we've seen so far. And I would argue that you could even place this even further to the south moving forward. And that's definitely something we're going to want to watch and talk about tonight, which we are streaming tonight once again. So stay tuned for that. But that's your Halves A model right here. A considerable shift to the south compared to what we've seen previously. And then we'll show you the Halves B for you guys right here. We'll go ahead and show you the 6Z for comparison. Here's what we got for you right here. We'll go ahead and go to about 72 hours out right here as the system continues to strengthen, moves north of the Lesser Antilles. Right here, this is about 66 hours out. Actually, this is where its closest approach is right here. 90.0 degrees north, 62.1 degrees to the west. That is where that low is right there. It's still not too far away from those Leeward Islands and the Virgin Islands right there. But what do we got? 12Z. Still a southward shift right here. This is now at 19.7 and 62.6 degrees west. So further to the south and further to the west has mainly been the story for this. And if we continue to see these southward tracks, you're going to start seeing these models continue to trend further and further and further to the south and closer towards land, like the Lesser Antilles, Puerto Rico, the Bahamas. Those areas in particular need to watch out very closely. And we'll continue to monitor the situation as always on this channel, but we'll have to kind of see how this goes because, man, this has been a very tough storm to forecast, like I've mentioned earlier, because we're still seeing these shifts further to the southwest because of the observations, because of what's going on with the organization of the storm. That's something that we need to keep in mind. Taking a quick look at water temperatures very quickly. Once again, here is your SSTs. Where it's currently situated right now is in an area comfortably about 27 to 28 degrees Celsius, and those waters are only going to warm up as this moves further to the west. I think it's in 28 degrees Celsius waters right now, as a matter of fact. So it's only going to get better and better from here all the way until we get to the southwestern Atlantic in terms of water temperatures. OHC continues to be a very big concern for me moving forward. Here's what we got for the latest map as well. OHC, where this is currently situated, is in an area about 50-ish OHC, which is part of the reason why you're still seeing all this convection blowing up and firing off on all cylinders right there. So that's something to pay attention to. And then as this moves more so towards the west, it's going to be entering 75, then 100 OHC, and then 125 OHC. And if it moves this far to the west and heads towards the Bahamas, more like this, like potentially up to 150 would be in play right here, and really allow the system to organize and intensify like the icon has been showing. But we'll have to pay attention to that. We'll watch the trends as we stream tonight, which, by the way, we will be streaming around 8 p.m. Central Time, 9 p.m. Eastern Time. So be sure you stay tuned for that. I'd be happy to see you guys on once again. But with that being said, we're going to go ahead and close the video out right here. I really hope you guys enjoyed the video. Main message, as always, is to watch how this system progresses. We've pretty much had to nowcast this for the last 5 days on our tropical team. And at this point, we're taking models with a grain of salt, given the current trajectories and given the current deviations that we continue to see. So stay tuned for that. And if you'd like to see that behind-the-scenes action, be sure to join the Storms United Discord server. The link to that is in the end screen. Also, like the video and subscribe. And with that being said, have a wonderful day, guys. Stay safe.